Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Welsh Republic podcast, episode 63 today. And I am here with my guest, Jessi Bennett. How are you doing today, Jessi?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm just been doing a lot of cleaning today. How about you? You've done anything video editing for your company? What's your name of the company?
Yeah, I work for Immersion Order Foundation, and today was mostly a budget day, but I'm a nerd and I love doing budgets, so great day.
I saw some of the videos that you did for the foundation you work for, and I saw the CEO Joshua, and it's very interesting. Your organization seems like you've got a very big crew working with you. And sounds like a fantastic job.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, so the CEO is John Popola. He's an absolutely wonderful leader. Joshua is our head of post-production, though, and also one of the owners of the company. But yeah, we work on a lot of really cool stuff. The main thing I'm working on at the moment is I'm associate producing we have a YouTube channel called Dad Saves America that is all about empowering active fatherhood and father figures of all stripes. So that's been a total blast to work on, and I feel really fortunate to be in the position I am.
Yeah, I was watching his video earlier when he was talking about the story trailer, the 12-minute video on the website. And he was talking like how everybody needs that father figure in America, especially in the black community and the white community. And one thing is, it's not just an America problem. Hello, kitty cat. That's all good. Don't worry about that. Your cat made a cameo.
He always does. Do not knock that over. I cannot do anything in peace in this house. Stop it.
That's all good. Don't worry. And like I saw like him talking about it, and it's just such a big thing because you look at like how the statistics shows that a lot of kids growing up without the father in the home are more likely to go to crime, they're more likely to be depressed, they're more likely to be down. And it just shows you one of the things that the New World Order have done and the globalist elites have done pretty much ever since 1990, if you look at like the span of the last 30 years, is that they destroyed the nuclear family by targeting masculinity and using feminism, whether you agree with feminism or not. Feminism is also, like, I would say extreme feminism and also a lot of the globalist ideologies has been used to destroy the nuclear family, and nuclear families is what builds a strong society. What is your opinions on that, and how would you fix it?
So before I get into anything about this, let me just make a quick note that I am not a representative of my employer in any way. So if I get into this stuff, it is just my opinions. But that being said,
that's all good. You're here to talk about your opinion. That's all good. Doesn't bother me. Go ahead.
Making it known that I'm not representing Emergent Order in this, but I personally am a feminist. I think that liberating women is overall a good cause, and I think that conflating that with putting down men is a really dangerous thing, because I think that it allows people that take things to the extreme to own the label of feminist. So that is one thing. Secondly, I think that the destruction of the nuclear family is less about cause and more about effect and fixing it. I don't know. Some of that could be my own bias. I'm very solution oriented personally, and I just look at that and think, okay, well, how do we fix it? So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the cause. I think it's a lot of different small factors, a lot of which have to do with different incentive systems. But the one thing that I think it always ladders up to is government intervention.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that like third wave feminism, extreme feminism, and you just look at today's culture. Personally, I think both men and women need to work better together. I think it's a problem that both men and women, have a bit of an issue with.
No,
and you look at like the man who goes their own way movement. I mean, look, the man who goes their way, the Midtown movement, right? You've heard of it?
No.
The Midtown movement basically is this movement that's made by men to go their own way. And it has some good things about it, and it has some bad things about it. But I definitely agree with you. I definitely think that government intervention is a lot to blame. And there's a lot of inspirational feminists who have made the world a better place, like feminists who wanted to give the right for women to vote. There's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, just to let you know, did you know New Zealand was the first country in the world to give, women the right to vote?
Now I do. Also, I was familiar with MGTOW. We just call it MG Tau over here. Like, I've heard a different, I just didn't pronunciation. I do think that movement tends to be more bad than good. And I do think that feminism tends to be more good than bad because it's a bigger tent approach, right? MGTOW is people who identify with that term, whereas feminism is a broader set of ideals. I also refuse to call what I think you're calling when you say third wave feminists, I think we're talking about the same thing. People who take it to an extreme, put men down, that sort of thing. They're definitely anti-male, but I refuse to let them take the title of feminist.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite feminist role model where, as you've been growing up, that you looked up to, and what story of feminism in history, throughout history, has been the most inspiring to you?
That is a wonderful question. So growing up, I mean, this is a super corny answer, but definitely my mom, because she so there's a lot of parenting shame that women in particular are subjected to about if you're doing things wrong or you're not doing enough. And I think that that gets disproportionately directed towards moms. I mean, fathers face a very different set of social pressures, but moms tend to face more of the like, you're not doing enough, you're doing this wrong, here's all these blog posts about what you're doing wrong. And my mom was always sort of guarding me and my little brother from the ways that people around us were being parented, much less free range. They weren't allowed to just go out and about. They had to be supervised all the time, which, I mean, all of these studies show inhibits developing proper neuroplasticity and makes you less functional as an adult. It's linked to have you by chance read the book The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff?
I think I've heard of it. What were the good points in that book that were brought up?
It's a great book, but basically it just identifies this turning point in parenting where free range parenting stopped really being a thing. Everybody was coddled, everybody was overprotected. And if you look at where the switch happens and then line up that generational line with when they would hit college, that's when the safe spaces start. That's when the trigger warnings start. That's when wanting to be protected from ideas really starts. So it's just about this fragility that has developed through this like weird parenting kind of moment where everything was overprotected. But because of that, and now especially in retrospect, I say my mom was kind of my feminist hero because she was facing this pressure that definitely disproportionately affects women. And she just fought against it. She shielded me and my brother from it. She let us go out and play around in the woods. And we both turned out to be pretty healthy adults. So she's definitely a hero of mine. As far as feminists in history goes, though, there was a second part to your question. I don't know that I have a favorite off the top of my head.
Can you name one of your favorites? One of your favorites?
No, I mean, I think the early suffragette movement as a concept is really inspiring. But no, I don't have a favorite figure.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Fair enough, well, Jessi, so tell me about your political journey. Tell me about your life. What led you to the road of anarchism? And what do you think about the people who say, that anarchism is fascist, that if we lived in a voluntary society, because there's a lot of right-wingers and left-wingers who will say, well, anarchism is actually chaos, when the true meaning of anarchism actually means being free from a state. When people say that about anarchism, what is your, response to that? And what do you say to people who have many doubts on anarchism?
Sure. Which part of the question would you like me to start with, the political journey or the justification of anarchism?
Both.
Oh,
both. Yeah.
So I I told this story on a couple podcasts, and like even as the person who experienced it, I never stopped finding it kind of amusing. But I've always been an anarchist, which I know sounds crazy, but I declared myself an anarchist very young, kind of probably just to be funny. I can't remember because I was too young, but I just never dropped it, which sounds absurd. But at a certain point in high school, I started reading the actual literature to back it up. I eventually took a political science class and was like, I don't believe in any of this. And somehow I ended up all the way at Rothbard. And that was probably the main author that shaped a lot of my beliefs. But it's kind of where it came from. One of the big instigating factors in that journey, though, was funny enough seeing the Keynes versus Hayek economics rap battle that was produced by my current employer before I worked there, because I was very young when it came out. But it was inspired by, the 2008 financial crisis. And I saw that, and it sent me down this journey because it felt like this more philosophical approach to anything else I'd been taught in like an economics class or anything like that. But yeah, I somehow ended up at anarcho-capitalism. And to people who say that it wouldn't work, I would say that even without government in place, I think, one, people are generally good and do good to others around them, not for any moral reason, but because even our most inherently selfish acts due to evolutionary psychology still benefit those around us as a social species. And B, a free market system would keep society organized, because if people won't do business with you, you go out of business, you don't survive. So that's my justification.
Yeah, I think that anarchism and voluntarism definitely exposes a lot about the Federal Reserve and how corrupt it is in America, and how America has just been going backwards, towards the way, it's been taken over. Did you join in a lot of the Occupy Wall Street protesting when that was happening?
No, I was not super involved in that, but recently I've been interested in it again as a result of reading Revolt to the Public by Martin Gurry. It's this wonderful book that basically goes through. It starts with the Mugabe protests in Egypt, and it goes all the way up through modern day Black Lives Matter protests. And it looks at all these different protest movements and their similarities, and basically paints this picture of how the old school elites and the old school media are inherently at odds with new age of protester and new age of, as he puts it, the public, which is, he defines it as any group of people who are interested in any given event at a given time. So the public revolting in all of these different instances, they share a lot of things in common. But one of the examples that he gives is the Occupy movement, which is particularly fascinating because they get so many of their protesting ideas and so much of their tear it all down philosophy is directly inspired by the Yellow Jacket protest in France. So it's all very interconnected and fascinating. But it was a very long answer to say no, I was not following them at the time.
Yeah, I think that with the way the world's going, you get a lot of, one thing I'm seeing in the West, and the one thing that COVID has done is it's really broken the left and right narrative. Like, more people now are becoming more independent, more people are switching to third parties. What is your thoughts on that? Like, more people becoming anarchist or libertarian? And do you think there's any chance, in a way, in the future of America going forward, do you think there's a chance that we could finally see like a libertarian president, or even perhaps like an anarchist president come into be? Because I mean, that would be fantastic, rather than to have the same left or right people, which a lot in New Zealand, we have, National Labour. National basically is our Conservative Party, and then you have Labour, which is the left, and then in Britain you have the Tories, and then you have the Labour. I think it would be good to have someone else win, for once, rather than the same old, story again and again.
Yeah, no, my thoughts on it are, wow, that would be awesome. But I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime. Doesn't mean I won't do what I can to advocate for it and in my personal life, spread the word. But yeah, well, we'll see. I'm not really all that into electoral politics. It takes up a lot of space in my brain, all feeding into a system I don't believe in. I've got other stuff to do.
Yeah, politics is definitely, I mean, I really miss the old days, Jessi, when people could just pretty much, not focus on politics. And, and it was a great time in the early 2000s, because you didn't have to worry about politics. Our generation, I saw a video where you basically technically said that people who were born in 1996 were technically like born in Generation Z, like in the beginning of Generation Z, like from 2000 to 2008. That, I feel, was the real last golden age of the West, because here in New Zealand, in those times, people didn't care about politics. They just cared about living their lives. They cared about, getting along. Maybe in America, that time you did have, from 9/11, you did have the war in Iraq, but mostly everybody was just focusing on living. And you could just grow up being a young kid, and you didn't have to worry about political correctness. You didn't have to worry about counterculture, which has been nothing but, and it just shows you, those were the last days when kids really felt like kids. And I just feel like how lucky were we, to have, being young. But as soon as we turned teenager, as soon as like Generation Z turned to become teenagers in like the 2010s, everything just went downhill. Being a teenager in the 2010s sucked, man. It really did. I
agree. No, I totally agree. It's kind of like the book I mentioned earlier, Revolt to the Public, also talks about this tsunami of information we're all faced with. And people constantly say things like, oh, I don't want to talk about politics anymore, but then continue to talk about politics. And I'm guilty of it as well. But the thing is, we are so bombarded by so much information, a lot of which is political, that it feels unavoidable in a lot of ways. I also completely agree about the 2010s feeling substantially different from the 2000s and being more negative in some ways, because that's where this turn happened too, where counterculture became more overtly political, for instance. Because here's the thing is, like, people say, there's like all this stuff about where people say, oh, I can't believe that Rage Against the Machine. Here's a perfect example. People say, I can't believe that Rage Against the Machine is now backing Biden and all this back stuff and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I can.
Yeah, it is insane. And how you had like Obama and Clinton and all that stuff, saying they were against gay marriage, but then they support it. And then you've got like Trump basically saying that he was a Democrat, and he actually, fun fact, he actually did support the war in Iraq, which there's a leaked article of that. And it just shows you the hypocrisy of how many of these people, like especially the people in The View, the people in The View used to be, with Trump, they used to agree with him how he talks about like, bringing America together and solving the communities. And now it's just at this point where they're like, divide, 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 divide. Like, for example, today, how you had Biden come on his podium and say all Trump supporters are terrorists, which is not very good at all. It's very, very bad. The whole mega movement is a bunch of extremists. And did you hear about the news about how that leftist killed that conservative person? How upsetting is that?
That's
Tribalism.
of it. I'm pretty unplugged at this point. I love philosophy. I love political philosophy. I don't love electoral politics. I don't read the news every day. I think it's bad for your brain. So
absolutely. It's just so toxic. It is. It's insane.
That happened. But yeah, this is the first I'm hearing of it. I think unplugging from it on a somewhat periodic basis is incredibly good for people. And I would encourage absolutely anybody listening to this to do it.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite type of philosophy to study from like what mythology and like what religion?
Yeah. Oh, that's a fun question. I really enjoy nihilism, absurdism in particular. I like objectivism. Don't agree with all of objectivism, but I find it very fun. Egoism's fun. Rational egoism is a subset of objectivism. Is extra fun. Kind of all over the place. I just like to read.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite thing about nihilism?
Definitely the view of suicide. I know that sounds really dark, but this idea that it's a choice, and even if it's the wrong choice, it's still in your own hands. But if life is meaningless and a lack of life is as meaningless, so why bother? I think it's kind of fun, and I don't know. There's something about that I find strangely positive. I also love nihilism because it makes your mistakes matter a lot in the grand scheme.
That is very, very true. That is very, very true. I was just saying that went like from zero to dark very quickly.
No, it's true though. I find absurdism very humbling, and I enjoy that. I think everybody could use a little bit of humbling from time to time. So when in doubt, read some Camus,
Yeah. When you talk about nihilism, right now, with the way the world's going, like with social media, and how the new world order is coming to be with all this not transgender stuff, but all this transhumanism stuff about wanting to live forever, and like this whole thing of needing. What is your thoughts on like humanity trying to play God, trying to be, the one? Do you think people, should stop aiming for that? And do you think that, the whole social media aspect of, trying to make people, think for themselves, and like this whole, social elitism feeling of like transhumanism telling us that we should live forever, and, or do you think that, would you choose to live forever, or would you not?
I think I would, just because I don't believe in an afterlife. So I personally would. I'm open to the idea of an afterlife, but I can't personally justify the belief to myself at this point in my life. So yeah, I would. I'll put my brain in the robot. I I know. I think transhumanism is fun. I don't by any means have any sort of expertise to actually contribute to that movement, but whenever I find a new paper with some sort of glimmer of whatever, I think it's fascinating. I also think maybe on some spiritual level it's impossible though, because cells naturally die, so we'd have to solve a problem that has existed throughout all life, literally forever. I mean, the only invincible animal, the tardigrade, has to go into a state of almost a complete comatose to even live for that long. So it's I
mean, jellyfish are also pretty, strong too. They can also live. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're hardy little fellas, but also really smart. But yeah, no, I don't know. If somebody solves the problem, somebody wants to put brains in the robot, and I can afford to put my brain in the robot, yeah, I'd do it.
Yeah. So
I can see why people would have problems with it if they're religious.
So you're an atheist, I take it.
I am, yeah. I definitely see the benefit of religion though. So when I say I'm an atheist, I always like to make sure I'm being clear that I'm not anti-religious. I work for some wonderful religious people. I work with some wonderful religious people. I have a lot of wonderful religious friends. I think there's all these studies that show that religious people are on average happier. I think that most tenets of religion, urge people to be kinder to each other. Anything that leads to that, I'm very much on board with. But yeah, I personally, I don't know. It never sold me.
Do you feel that if there was a God, especially with like how like a lot of atheists, I watch a lot of good atheist channel like Dark Matter. He's a very good atheist person. You should watch him, and Richard Dawkins and stuff, and they've made fantastic videos.
Yeah.
They talk about like how if God was real and all this stuff to, you know, to basically exist, you know, how like basically, you know, people can die in the world and the messed up things in the world, and especially like how big the universe is, and especially like how if God was good, why would he allow evil in the world? Why would he allow us to live in a rock where you could basically get neutralized by a neutron star or like absorbed by a black hole? Do you like think, because there's a famous quote by a philosopher, I can't remember its name, who said that if God was real, he can't be all good, he can't be all this.
Yeah, I don't
Do
think that.
you think, Jessi, if God was real, do you think he would be evil, or do you like, what is your answer to that?
I think that, so I know the quote you're referencing because it's like, if he could stop it, why wouldn't he? And if he can't stop it, then he's not omnipotent or he's not God, something like that. I think maybe the nature of God is not omnipotent. I like if I had to paint a picture of a good God, it couldn't be omnipotent, but maybe it's just God in the sense that it's a creator. So that could be something along the lines of the simulation theory. I love thinking about like the idea of like that, because I think the simulation theory is plausible. So does that mean I believe in a creator, and does that mean that I'm not an atheist because I have a God? I mean, that's a great question. But in this case, maybe we're just on some auto run program. They don't have the controls anymore.
Well, we could be in a simulation program like the Matrix, you know, pretty much. Like, who's not to say maybe humanity would have died already, but we could be living in a multiverse. We could be like in a string, you know, run by aliens in a cosmic, you know, dimension. Like, one thing I really love, Jessi, is the multiverse theory, and I also love the omniverse theory. Have you ever heard the omniverse theory?
The omniverse one is where it's, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that where it's infinite number of universes, all infinitely large, but
No, that's multiverse. That's multiverse.
but the
Omniverse is basically like instead of universes, there's multiverses, and the thing is, in the Omniverse, is a lot of those multiverses have different realms of physics. They have different, you know, objectives, and also like there's a lot of, you know, writers who will have their like own versions, like DC and Marvel. DC and Marvel will have their own versions of the Omniverse, and like there's also different philosophers who will have, you know, when they're writing comic book stories, you know, different things. So, and a lot, you know, when you have the multiverse, you will have, you know, basically there's this one person who believes the omniverse is real, and in the omniverse, outside of the omniverse, you have heaven and hell. And basically, like for me, when I look at that, that like explains, you know, the whole ghost theory and the heaven and hell theory. Because if you look at the universe, especially like with CERN and all, how trippy reality can be, it's just strange, isn't it? Hey, it's absolutely messed up.
yeah, absolutely. No,
Mm-hmm.
there have been an abnormal amount of Mandela effects since all the CERN stuff started. But that being said, I think people are just paying closer attention now, and there's probably always been that many.
Mm-hmm. What is the creepiest Mandela effect that you've noticed so far?
Oh, there was a real stupid one the other day that like blew my mind for some reason. Okay, Britney Spears' skirt in the Toxic music video changed color. And like, I know that that is the stupidest one, but I was obsessed with that music video. Okay, I remember it, and I'm still very into Britney because I like, I love her. She was a pop queen. She contributed a lot to culture. I stand Britney Spears, but her skirt was not black. It was not. I remember it. It was like red plaid, and it's black now, and it like freaked my brain out so bad
Do,
because
do do people say to you? Do people say to you, Jessi, are you smoking? It sounds like you're smoking some
this
strong
happened
stuff.
to tons of people. This happened to tons of people. It a couple days later, it like went viral after a couple people noticed. It was everywhere, and tons of people were like, "Holy shit! I remember the red plaid." And this is definitely a Mandela effect because I did not see a single person supporting the black skirt. So
Yeah, I mean, the Mandela effect is very, very trippy because, like, when you look at like the last time it was put on, I think it was in 2009, and then it was turned off. I think it was and then it was turned off in 2012. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But like when you look at like, there's a lot of theories to when like the Mandela effect was turned on in 2012 or 2009. That a lot of people believe that a lot of the, you know, the energy that was coming from the current that was opening up into different reality rifts was basically spreading like dark matter and affecting the minds of the people. And basically like how dark matter, how basically like the Mandela effect is like something that basically makes the story of the book go very, very trippy, or it's some kind of special being who like snaps his fingers and reality change. I feel like that a lot of this political correctness behavior and a lot of this crazinism that we see from humanity pretty much, rejecting its own ways, I feel maybe comes from the Mandela effect, affecting reality, affecting the matter, affecting, the negative feelings, because a lot of Christians say, it's dark energy, it's the demons doing it. And a lot of other people say, it's physics. And, one of the strange things I've noticed is, the sky. Sometimes when I go walking out, you can sometimes see, the color of the sky changing. There's a lot of people saying like how, the names of, restaurants have changed. It's absolutely freaky. Sometimes you do get absolutely ridiculous ones where they say, oh, this, horse was moving in an odd way. You can get those over, exaggerated, and Mandela effects that can be really dumb.
Yeah. I think I don't tend to notice the little ones day to day like that, but I have had this more macro sort of feeling that since like early COVID, everything's been in some kind of time loop where everybody's just talking about the same things.
Yeah, by the way, they actually turned CERN on in 2020. They did.
That tracks. Yeah, it's felt like some weird time loop since then. You're making me a little bit anti-CERN in this conversation, sir. No, I'm actually not super up to date on what's going on over there. But I mean, based on that date, yeah, I mean, things have felt off since then. But it could just be the mass formation psychosis of being gaslit by every government body for the last few years and being locked in our homes and just the sort of like large scale human trauma of the whole thing. So that might.
Sorry, Jessi, if I'm being a bit strange.
No, you're not. I enjoy this kind of thing. Go for it.
Yeah, I do believe that the negative effect of CERN, has pretty much led to, a lot of the West doing these stream lockdowns. But anyways, talking about that, I also see that you're a big fan of emo stuff, punk rock, which, I love some punk rock bands, My Criminal Romance, like back in the day, Blink-182, Sum 41.
Yeah.
Like, what is your type of like favorite, emo goth, writing? And your favorite, goth music, your favorite band?
So I mean, those are all different genres. They all kind of have their own place. But I'd say my biggest musical soft spot is for second and fourth wave emo. I love anything with like the open tunings, the like really twinkly guitar tones, the arpeggiated moments, the math rock. I love all that stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love first and third wave too, but yeah, because those, I'm talking about the stuff that mostly is reclassified as Midwest emo. I absolutely adore all of that, and it'll probably always be my number one. I've got a thing for pop punk too, and I do appreciate its influence on the third wave emo, but it just depends on the day. It really does.
A lot of people seem to like have this very judgmental thing towards emoism or goth, because a lot of people will say that, oh, emos are like these depressed people. They're like these losers. But there's a lot of emos I see, like helping out in animal shelters, helping out, poor people, and stuff like that. I've spoken to like some emos before who are also against the New World Order agenda and are also very, very smart people. I mean, there have been so many, smart emo people throughout history. You could argue Alan Poe, was a bit, gothic the way he spoke with how depressed he was. Did you see that episode in South Park?
No, I haven't really kept up with South Park. I've heard it stayed good, but I'm not watching a lot of scripted.
Oh, they did an absolutely hilarious episode on like taking the piss out of the emo and goth people, and it's
I have seen like the emo characters in these. I particularly like the episode where the vampire kids show up to the school and they're getting mad because everybody keeps confusing them and the vampire kids, even though they're all dressed the same. So it's quite funny because it's such a good commentary on the way that various sub countercultures all go after each other, because it's so completely true. I mean, the counterculture movement as a whole has suffered greatly because of gatekeeping and infighting and all of this nonsense, in the same way that the liberty counterculture has suffered. So there's no matter what you do with a subculture of any kind, I think that it'll start to implode on itself at a certain point, especially when you involve social media and all these different ways of interconnecting all of it. But I think that as long as you survive that initial implosion, you'll be fine.
Have you had some right-wingers, like right-wing Christians look at you and say to you that, oh, because you're gothic and you're emo, they basically say what you're following is going to lead you to hell. It's dark magic, and stuff like that.
But you want to know what's funny is how much of it I've gotten from self-proclaimed libertarians that are just like a little bit more traditional than me. I've gotten all kinds of stuff like, oh, well, you're a libertarian and you're slightly more culturally progressive than me on this issue, but because of your makeup, you must have daddy issues. Like, it's always some shit like that. And it's just
Oh
completely.
yeah. Because like what they'll do is they'll pretty much, look, because like a lot of lefties, do have like emo type hair, and like a lot of people would like seem to say, that emos are pretty much, like this, liberal person, when in fact they're not.
And
There's concern. Go ahead,
oh no,
Jessi.
I was just going to say that it's very much a self-fulfilling prophecy. By making those assumptions, you're only further like pushing people within your own social circle out of maybe exploring a little bit more what they're into, like as far as pop culture and all those other things go. And I think it's just really limiting.
That is very, very true.
And
I
people complain that counterculture is no longer anti-authority when they've done as much as they can to keep the anti-authority crowd away from counterculture. So it's just sort of this like weird loop of making both movements smaller and more exclusive of each other, which is totally antithetical to achieving liberty. I mean, we are a counterculture movement of types. So I think that any sort of collaboration that can be done with other types of counterculture is hugely beneficial.
Mhm. What is your favorite type of like gothic movie that you really loved growing up, and your favorite, gothic, story?
I mean, I did like Poe, but movie wise, I don't know. I wasn't really into gothic.
Are you talking about The Raven with John Cusack and Luke Evans? Have you seen that?
I just meant Poe in general, like as a figure, but no, I haven't seen
Oh,
that.
fair enough. That's a movie about him. Anyways, as you're saying, keep going.
Oh no, I've never really been big into gothic cinema, but I'm sure there's some good stuff out there.
Oh, there's some very, very good stuff. You should absolutely try it. Try watching it. So speaking of that, what led you into the road of, like what made you want to become an executive producer? And what do you love about doing it by doing film work?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that question. So just to clarify, I'm an associate producer, but I mean, I guess my long-term goals, I'd love to be an EP one day. But no, I started off actually in music school, and I was not doing super well with a couple of the courses going on, and I realized over time it wasn't really fit for me. The job prospects weren't things that I thought I would super enjoy, so I switched out of a bachelor's of music into a bachelor's of the arts, and I kept changing my degree and doing all this stuff. But on the weekends, I was doing location sound on film sets because I did have the audio knowledge to do that from the courses I was taking, and just the self research that sent me into. I never learned super well in like a structured top down classroom environment, just never worked for my brain. But at a certain point, I was getting a lot more fulfillment out of the time spent on film sets than I was in any of my classes. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see what I can do to make this happen. So I tried producing and directing one short film on my own, completely fell in love with it. And from there, I found a wonderful organization called the Moving Picture Institute that basically finds people who are philosophically aligned, and they pay for 3 months worth of an internship at a company in a city you're choosing. Now, me being obsessed with the Case versus Hike rap battle and other stuff emerged and were produced before I was there. So like season 1 of Love Gov was probably my favorite thing. I really liked At the Fork, all kinds of stuff they made. I was like, oh
What
my
was Love Gov about?
Oh my God, Love Gov is hilarious. Okay, so they did season 1 before I was there. My first week as an employee was season 2, and right now we're working on season 3, so it's all great. But it's basically a web series that we did for a client called the Independent Institute, another wonderful nonprofit, definitely worth looking into. But it's basically the government as a guy, like personified into this character. So it's
That's
hilarious.
very clever.
Season 1, he's like a bad, creepy boyfriend. Season 2, he's a bad landlord who's also creepy. And season 3 right now, you guys will have to wait for it to come out and watch it.
That sounds pretty interesting. It kind of in a way sounds like the Christmas Carol guy, like the main character, how he's basically like, very miserable and he doesn't do anything to help out people. That's
Oh,
very, very interesting. Who came up with the idea of that character?
actually, one of the founders of the company, I believe, came up with it. Lisa Versace. She is a fantastic creative with absolutely brilliant ideas, and that one is my personal favorite, just because Love Gov was what like made me fall in love with this organization.
That's very, very cool. So, because you're a filmmaker yourself, let's just say if you could have an opportunity, right? If Hollywood came up to you, like whatever studio, Warner Brothers or Marvel came up to you and said, hey, Jessi, we want you to do a movie. And let's just say you could pretty much, you were the director of the movie and they let you, have creative control, no political correctness, none of that nonsense. They gave you a budget of like, let's say, a very strong budget. What would your movie be about? Who would you get to play the main role, and what story like would it be? Like, let's say if the movie was like a gothic horror movie, because you're a big fan of like gothic emo stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so as far as media goes, I'm mostly into unscripted stuff. So like, I love documentary is my big thing. But yeah, scripted film, I'm not as versed on. That being said, though, I think I would want to do a really dry feature length comedy. So if I have to do a scripted thing, I'd want to do a really dry comedy where basically there's an executive order, the government disappears, and then nothing fucking happens. And the whole thing is a movie about nothing because everybody's fine without the government. So the whole thing is just full of like weird timed comedy, kind of like you know how the timing is a little bit off in shows like Letterkenny. I'd want to like kind of pull from that a little bit, but it's something like day one happens, everything, the government goes away, there's no new crime, there's no like notable difference to crime that first night, and like the main character goes to a bar, and the only thing that happens is the beer is like $1 cheaper because there's no taxes, something like that, where it's like a show about nothing, but it's a movie about nothing. That's what I'd want to make.
That sounds really, really cool. That sounds an awesome idea for a movie. You should definitely do that one day, pursue that idea. Like, maybe you could call it, what would be a good name? Like
a movie about
maybe.
No, a movie about nothing. That's the title.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good name. That's a very, very good name. Who would, if you could choose any actor to play the main role, who would you choose?
Oh, it's got to be someone that can deadpan. Someone that can deadpan like nobody's business. Or I go a different route and why I don't know why my gut is telling me Adam Driver would be really funny. I've never seen him anything particularly comedic, but like something about his like weird, sullen like nature, I think could like just be the straight man throughout the thing.
Oh, he's a good actor. He was very good in the movie with, I think he did a movie with not Scarlett Johansson. He did a movie with Elizabeth Olsen lately. I can't remember. And he also did a movie with Daniel Radcliffe.
He was in that movie with ScarJo though. The one, I forget the name, but it's that like really drawn out movie about divorce.
Yeah. He got nominated for an Oscar for that. I can't remember the name, but he was very, very good in that. He's a good actor. He's a good actor, Adam Driver. I mean,
I would love to see him in the role of like straight man in a comedy. So I think that's what I'd go for.
You could get Britney Spears to do the music in that movie.
I could, yeah. It's all coming together. That's gonna be half the budget, is just getting like the Britney Spears songs, and then I'll just do the rest on shoestrings. It'll be fun.
They should definitely fulfill that role. That'll be absolutely cool. I see your flag in the background. Where did you get that flag? It's a very, very cool flag.
I don't remember. I've had it for a long time. I'm not much of a decorator. There's just kind of random stuff around my apartment. So
that's very, very cool.
Yeah, like that shelf in the corner is my oddity shelf. It's messy in here, so I'm not going to gesture around too much. But it's my oddity shelf. That's like one other weird thing I do. I collect weird stuff. So I've got like a sheep's heart in there. I have a human kneecap. I have a human brain slice. I've got a human rib. I just like things. I have a egg. I just think it's fun.
How come you keep a human rib in there? What's going on? Is there something you're not telling us? Just kidding.
I'm just really fortunate enough to live in a city with really good oddities events. I really don't know many places I could live where this would be like a viable casual hobby for
me. That sounds really, really cool.
Nice.
Wow. So speaking of that, as we're talking about like the anarchist movement and libertarian movement, now I've noticed that the libertarian movement and the Libertarian Party really has had a different change of order, a new leadership. What do you think has been the thing that has gone wrong with the Libertarian Party in the last 10 years? And like, why, from seeing your experience from going to some conventions, what has been the thing that they've needed to work on?
I don't know anything about the party. I mean, look, I think that for some people, they think politics are the answer. I think anybody following what they think the answer is doing a good thing, and that's about it. I stay out of it. It's just, I don't know. It's become increasingly stressful in the last few months because it's also fractured. Everybody's like, I'm against this caucus and I want to do this and culture war, this and that. And I frankly don't care anymore. More power to the people that have stuck with it and think that that is the solution. I hope you keep chasing your dreams. I hope you succeed. Have fun, but I just frankly don't have the brain space for it. I'm just going to keep making liberty-minded movies and listening to music and hanging out with my cat. I'm just done. I'm done.
Did you want to bring your cat and tell him to say hi to everybody on the picture?
Oh, I can find her. Yeah, sure. Give me one sec.
No worries. Take your time.
Yeah, I think she's right over here. Come here. The people have spoken. She is a little famous at this point. She's got to make a little cameo. Here we go. That's Spot.
Oh, she's a beautiful cat. She's so cute. You know, one thing I love about cats is when they have faces like that. That absolutely adores me. Like, it's just so cute.
Yeah, there's something about her that's just like a little bit off, and I really love that. Have you ever seen those pictures of medieval cats and how they always look a little bit cursed?
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
She looks like a lot of the time. I got a good angle on her for this, so she looked a little bit prettier. But yeah, she looks like a medieval cat a lot of the time, and I just think that's really fun. But yeah, that's what I'm doing instead of following LP politics and drama is hanging out with that beast. So among lots of other things, but I don't know. Even though I'm saying this as a joke, I think there actually is something kind of beautiful to that. Like, that's my home life. There are other ones, but like focusing more on what you've got in your day-to-day life that is directly affecting you, I think is super important and super beneficial to people, and probably better than getting mad about an election all the way around the world. You know, instead of that, go out with your friends. Hang out with your kids.
Exactly. Have fun, you know, go out partying, you know, and stuff like that, which is very, very good.
Concert, yeah. I don't know. More and more over time, I've learned to value what's happening in front of me more and what's happening far away from me less.
Mm-hmm. You know, I see, you know, you got your hair color, you know, different. You know, I've seen you some of the videos, you know, you've actually done your hair like different colors before.
Fun. I think I might do orange next.
Orange. Oh, I'll tell you, one of the nightmares about dye, like when I was younger, I actually dyed my hair purple once. Oh my God, that was terrible because it ended up going into this horrible pink, and that was like, oh no.
It's fun. No, yeah, you always have to count on the fade. So what you got to do is like, you take the dye and you put it on like a paper towel or something white, and you thin it all the way out to see what color it turns into, so you can tell what the undertone is, and that's the color it's probably going to fade to.
Mm-hmm. What's the hardest color that you've had to do on your hair before?
This, God, getting it all the way light was super hard. So this started as silver before it faded out. So hard. The first time I did it, I botched it and it turns purple. The second time I did it, it was silver for like a day, and I was dumb and swam in the ocean with my friends, and then it turned yellow. Then I did something, I forget what, and now it's kind of white. I don't know. I don't really care about it all that much for somebody that changes it a lot. I change it for the fun of doing the change rather than for how it's actually going to look a little bit. So I sort of anticipate that it's going to look crappy after a week and don't really mind all that much. So no big deal.
That's very, very cool. Who is your favorite band to listen to?
Oh man, that is tough because my favorite band is really embarrassing. My favorite band is Blink-182. And I know that sucks. I know that.
Oh, they're a good band. They're a good band. I was listening to one of their songs after midnight. I love that song they did in 2011.
Neighborhoods is a wonderful record. I appreciate about that album how you can tell because of where they were in their trajectory as a band, like they were very fractured at that point. You can tell who wrote which song based on
yeah, that is very true. They went for a phase. I love the song you know, all the small things. They did another. I can't remember the name of the song. I miss you. I miss you. That song. You know, yeah, that's such a good song. You know, and all the small things.
Yeah, I Miss You is off of my favorite record of theirs, but it's probably my least favorite song on the record. I love the song. I love the song, but yeah, that album as a whole was a real like shift for them musically that led them to like the stuff they're making today. Okay, I do have a Blink-182 opinion that would like get me canceled in the punk spaces though. I like Blink-182 with Matt Skiba. I do. I don't like it as much as OG Blink, but like I get a lot of shit for still listening to their new stuff. I do think that California was a weak album, excluding the bonus tracks, which were good, and then I think they found their footing with Skiba, and I stand by that 9 was a fantastic album.
Oh, absolutely. Their new stuff is not too bad, and their old stuff. It's funny because Jessi, every time like I think about one Blink 182, it always makes me think about the American Pie movie because you heard a lot of their songs. I know, right?
Yeah, back in their like sad party boy era. Yeah, that's a fun one. No, I mean I like their early stuff too. It's definitely closer to punk, not that album, but like earlier Dude Ranch. Definitely closer to punk, but I do have this pet peeve where if you say you like Blink, people say they're not really punk, as if I don't already know that. I'm not saying they're punk. I'm saying I like them. Those are two very different sentences. You can like both punk and pop punk and acknowledge that they're drastically different. In fact, like I would say fourth wave emo is closer to punk than like Blink is, but that's fine. Music genres are flexible and shift around, and you don't have to only listen to one thing. It's the same gatekeeping nonsense that is fucking everything else up, politics included.
Mm-hmm. What other bands do you like to listen to?
Depends on the day. Well, right now I'm wearing a Chaos and Carnage shirt, which that was a really fun tour. It was Carnifex, Suicide Silence, Lorna Shore.
Did you go to see them live? That must have been really, really fun to see them live.
I did, yeah. Lorna Shore has been really fun to watch grow as a sort of breakout band of the last couple of years because they've been a band for a while, but the new vocalist, Will Ramos, really put them on the map. They had this song in the Hellfire go super viral on TikTok, and that's sort of what blew them up. It's yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch their career grow. I think if there's going to be a band that's going to like repopularize deathcore, it's definitely going to be them. Although something interesting I noticed, so they actually were not a co-headliner on that tour. They were one tier below, which I think goes to show that music marketers have not caught up with the future yet because they had more people in the pit than most of the headliners. So that was kind of it, besides maybe Suicide Silence. But it was just interesting to watch because I don't think they understood what the scale of a viral TikTok sound really looks like yet. I think that's the same, by the way, for marketing politics. Since this is kind of a theme throughout, but it's these two things are kind of in tandem, right? It's people from the old generation of media do not know what to do with the new generation of media yet. And it also goes back to the revolt of the public stuff with all the protests. There's this constant tension between the two things, and it's very evident in music too. But regardless, it was a fun show. I can't wait to see where Lorna Shore goes. The new vocalist, in my opinion, has the best like fry vocals in the scene right now, so it'll be cool.
Yeah, she very, very cool. I can imagine, the news type of stuff. My favorite punk rock band was really Linkin Park back in the day. I was also a big fan of you're not a fan of Linkin Park?
No, I love Linkin Park. I really enjoyed them.
Oh, fair enough.
But yeah, I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, I also really love Sum 42. Big fan of My Criminal Romance. I absolutely love the song Famous Last Words. Brilliant song.
That was a fun show.
Who else have you seen in concert before?
Oh my God. Between which dates? Sorry, I go to a lot of shows, so I have to like walk it back. I think MCR was the last big show I went to. Did I see anyone after that? I mean, this year I've seen Hot Mulligan a few times. I saw, after MCR, I saw, a couple days later, I saw, who all played? Citizen played. Joyce Manor was the headliner. Prince Daddy and the Hyena played. It's a little hard to keep up. I go to a lot of shows. Hot Molly was good. I saw Newfound Glory this year. That was a really fun show. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place.
Have you ever seen My Bullet Valentine or no?
No, but I have not. I actually kind of missed them. The like pure post-hardcore stuff that was like kind of tied to third wave emo. I kind of missed a lot of that stuff because at the time I was very much like I'm listening to metal and I'm listening to pop punk, and the stuff in the middle outside of the really popular bands was a little bit lost on me. I do enjoy their music though. I just wasn't super into them at the time that they were super popular.
Mm-hmm. I actually never heard of this term. I never thought that there was like this second, third emo wave before. Where on earth did that term come from? Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, basically emo is like a much bigger genre than people realize, because when people say emo today, what they usually mean is like
Oh, I get what you mean. The miss, the stereotype rubbish,
By the way, this is another opinion I get shit for, but is real emo in my opinion. It's just third wave emo. So the first wave is the very beginnings of emo. So the first, like, what people say is the first emo band was Rites of Spring. So first wave emo really originates in Washington D.C. out of the local post-hardcore scene. I would also argue that Fugazi was emo, even though they deny it, and also even though Ian McKay was a Fed. But then the second wave is where you get more of the indie math rock influences. So that's like your Captain Jaws, American Football, Sunny Day Real Estate, that kind of thing. Cannot wait for their reunion tour. No way in hell I'm missing it. But so there's that second wave. Third wave, that's mall emo. So that's like the stuff we're talking about now. And then the fourth wave is basically this new resurgence of second wave emo. So that's like Hot Mulligan, Prince Daddy and the Hyena, Joyce Manor. You could argue maybe Heart Attack Man is fourth, fifth wave. So that's kind of where all of those sit. Second and fourth are very similar. First and third, a little bit dissimilar, but first has adjacencies to all of them.
Wow, actually, it's pretty interesting to see that happening, like for them having first wave. Before you know it, they'll have like a first wave, for this and that. It's just like,
I actually do be helpful just for sort of categorizing things and wrapping your head around how broad sound can be within the same genre. Because I mean, the first wave, that goes back to the like mid and late 1980s. People don't realize emo is that old. They think, 2000s. But
of course it was around in the 80s. I mean, who on earth said it wasn't around in the 80s? That's where it pretty much began, It's like absolutely outrageous.
I know.
And if you think about it, it was even in the times, of Allegana Poe, like maybe it wasn't called emo back then, but if you think about it, that whole, dark art,
as we currently understand it, but I do see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do know. Sorry, I thought your audio went off for a second.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah, it's back. It's it is fine.
Okay.
But I also just wanted to say, imagine if you went to a Blink-182 concert with your friends. What would you do if you were in a Blink-182 concert and the singers asked you to come on stage and sing for like everybody in the crowd? What song would you love to sing? If they gave you the opportunity to sing.
So that's a fun idea. So I've seen them live, I think 5 or 6 times. I love Blake. I like if they're within 3 hours driving distance of me, I go. Just kind of my rule. But what song? So I could pick a fun one. If I was gonna pick a fun one, I would do "Damn It." I feel like I could really rock that, even though it's a little bit out of my register. I could be really sappy and do one of the like sad underrated ones off of their self-titled album. I could do Obvious. That's a fun one. I think I'd have to go with Damn It though. I'd have to go with Damn It. It's just like it's so upbeat. You only have to hit like 3 notes, which is true for a lot of their songs, but that one in particular is really simple to sing. And I don't know, the lyrics are kind of resonate with me in a simple way too, because the song is basically about like, things fucking up consistently. And it's this very like overly simple way of looking at a breakup in particular, which I think is really fun because, it doesn't always have to be a super deep, super sad love song when you're dealing with something. It can sometimes just be, oh man, that sucks.
That is true. I think a lot of people, today take love too serious and, they always get stressed out, and I think that people need to learn when it comes to like how these love songs, talk about relationships. I think a lot of people, really just, and that's one of the things we talk about in the political scene, like people nowadays feel like they must have a girlfriend or must have a boyfriend. And it's just,
it's so
one of the things, like that has really just made Generation Z depressed.
It's so true because I think it's 2 factors. It's one, the fact that people are looking for fulfillment in a partner, which is so unhealthy. You need to be self-fulfillment and you need to be able to get internal gratification before you can bring another person into the picture at all. And second of all, I think there's this very toxic idea going around that the end of relationship is some kind of failure, whereas sometimes things just run their course and that's okay. Sometimes things just end when they're supposed to end.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be. They're like they don't get along well, and that's
winning. End it and move on with your life. That is a win.
Yeah, and also, as you know, the older people said, before, back in the day, I remember when I was younger, some and a lot of other young people would get told, don't rush to look for a girlfriend. But then so many young people just get, brainwashed, and they feel like they're peer pressured to have a girlfriend, because if they don't, they're not cool. Oh man, that was just such a frustrating time in the last 20 years, that has been. Did you have that issue too?
No, not really. I've always been as long as I can remember, dating has always just been like something I did if I felt inclined, but I just never found it quite as interesting as other things. I don't know, I'm perfectly happy just hanging out with my platonic friends, and I'm happy to date if somebody catches my interest, but it's just never been a high priority now. I find it less gratifying than I do other things. And I think I'll probably remain that way, so I don't pressure myself now.
Yeah, just take your time, Jesse. I'm sure you'll find the right person, like I think the biggest thing is it's this peer pressure in the culture we live in, from the stupid, culture where you have social media pressurizing everything, it just doesn't help, and I think you're right. People should take their time. And I think it's good that you're just hanging out with people as friends. I think,
I mean,
it's one thing,
talking about my current life. I'm just talking about mindset. But yeah, no. I get that. So just as a rule, I don't talk about my personal life in that capacity online. Just not a thing I do. But that being said, though, I think some of it too is that people do look to these past generations and certain age milestones where they did things, and they forget to take into consideration how much longer the average human life expectancy is now. So it's like if you take that same life expectancy and you divvy it up by proportions, every portion of your life is longer by a certain, even if at the moment it's marginal amounts. So I think that's also something people should think about a little bit more when they rush into things. And that's not specific to dating either. That's just in general. Like, oh, you didn't get that promotion yet? Well, your life is only a quarter of the way over based on the way human life is, the trajectory.
yeah. And people just give up too easily. People, just think basically this one moment, is the end, but they don't realize that in the longer run, that moment of sadness is going to help them become positive, and I really wish that men and women in today's world, where everything can be so toxic, can just follow the ideology, moving forward. As they say, get up, look up, don't ever give up, because there's always going to be the sun at the end of, the cloud.
No, it's true. I think another core like thinking flaw that sort of plays into that is the sense a lot of people seem to have that the world owes them something rather than that you have to work for it, and sometimes you will fail, and that's okay. I think that's a big thing I see, particularly among my generation, is this idea that like you are owed something just by
Yeah,
simply.
that is definitely true. That is definitely, rather than going out there, doing what our grandfathers and our ancestors used to do, and the thing is, going out there and working for stuff, what young people need to understand, especially at our age, that it's okay, and to be honest, going out there and working hard and getting that reward feels awesome. It feels like you have achieved something, like, especially like when, you probably, do film work with, the company that you're in right now. What's it called again?
Emergent Order Foundation.
Immersion Audio Foundation. You probably feeling like after doing like a very difficult set, you probably feel like this sense of fulfillment. And I feel like that's the thing that's missing in today's world. I feel like if you had more of that, young people wouldn't be so depressed. And if they had actually something to do, it gives them a purpose in life than rather just sitting down all day, just doing nothing. It just doesn't help. I mean, what type of existence is that?
And I totally agree. And I don't think it has to be your career either. I don't think it is for some people. For me, it personally is. Like, I think you figure out what you naturally gravitate towards, put more eggs in that basket, and find the gratifying moments here and there. But yeah, the super hard film set thing is so real, though. Like, after a super long day, especially if it's a thing I was producing, I just sit back and I go, holy shit, I pulled it off. Like, it is the best shit. It is the best. That's the other thing that really drew me to this career path, by the way, is that it is kind of anti-risk averse in a lot of ways, and I cannot stand like risk averse things. Like I like to just go all in on stuff. I like to go crazy with it, and I think that the trajectory that I took to get here is kind of indicative of that. So when I found out I had an opportunity to intern here, I literally like dropped out of college, sold my car to pay for a move here, and like moved to Austin all within a period of 1 month. So like, if that gives you any sense of an idea, like I'm a little bit crazy, but like it's a good job for that, to be just a little bit crazy. So it all worked out.
Hmm? Can you tell us more about the foundation you work for? Like we were talking about it earlier, but the foundation I saw, likes to, spread awareness, how like the American dream, how they were basically like in the documentary where I saw the story, how they were basically talking about like before, like when the original capital in America used to be, Philadelphia, and how the American dream is about,
Oh,
overcoming in America.
the
That's yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, so I mean that project is very indicative of the foundation's values in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean we just seek to instill the values of American freedom is the way we tend to put it. So it's all very freedom oriented, and that can take a lot of different forms. But as I mentioned earlier, our like very much key project at the moment is Dad Saves America, which you guys can find on YouTube, youtube.com/Dad Saves America.
When I look at that, when I look at all of that movie and how like that trailer was talking about, the rise of political correctness, the rise, teaching America, how the ideology of America, is actually toxic and, bad. When the truth is, the founding fathers made a country that has an ideology that's supposed to be for freedom, that's supposed to be for everybody. But of course, governments, pretty much held that back for a long time. When I look at that documentary, it makes me think of the movie, what's that movie where the girl sings "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow"? What's that one called? Annie, that one. And how there's a scene. Do you remember the movie Annie?
I'm familiar with it. Again, I'm a documentary person pretty through and through. But yeah, no.
There's a scene in that movie where she's talking to the president of the United States, and then in the Great Depression.
Yes.
And if you look at the time of the Great Depression, it's pretty much like what we're living in. This era we're living in is our version of the Great Depression. And how did they get out of the Great Depression? They overcame it. They got strong again. They basically, went back to their traditional values. They realized, you know what? Let's be happy. The sun can come out. And look. Maybe we are going for a tough time in the West, but we will overcome it. Maybe obviously we are going to see the end of the Western world is going to become more multipolar, but we will overcome it. Just like people did in the 1920s, they will overcome it, and we will maybe see a new era rise where it will be prosperous, where families will be strong again. And I think it's one of the most important things of that documentary, like like the person Josh points out, is I think it's so good to have foundations. The one that you have it's helping youth, people to show you guys can do it, and especially in the bit in the movie where basically it shows that a lot of young kids in America are like, don't have like what Superman had, because there's a bit in that trailer when it brings up Superman, how like Superman had a father, but if you don't have a father, it's just not going to work, and you need, that inspiration, you need that strong father figure in, your life to help you keep going. And it's always good. And especially, whether it's a father figure or a feminist figure, it's so important to have that, because to keep you guys going,
statistically important to development. Yeah. And there's a lot of unique ways that dads tend to very naturally parent. A book that really formed a lot of the emphasis on fatherhood that led to the channel was The Boy Crisis by Warren Farrell. Really gets into this, but like dad style parenting, just on average, tends to have a lot of really distinct things that are really important for early children's brain development, such as letting them take more risks, which helps them to better assess situations. And
absolutely.
Of self-ownership, and neuroplasticity comes from the way that dads tend to play with their kids, and roughhousing and playing kind of rough, things that dads tend to do, is very good for developing empathy. So there's lots of little things here and there. The empathy one is particularly interesting when I found that out, because it's a little bit counterintuitive in a way, right? Because you would think that would be more of a mom thing, but on average that does tend to come more from dad style parenting. So it just this is all backed up with statistics in the book. It's for anybody interested and just like the issues of Inman's issues, I definitely think that The Boy Crisis is a must read.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite book that you've read of all time when it comes to helping you out, studying human nature, and, you like philosophical?
Yeah. Oh, that's a fun one. Probably. Oh my God, that's so hard. Because I'm like trying to think whether to go off like modern or not. I mean, The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley really formed my view of the world. But kind of indirectly. So let me just explain for a sec. I mean, okay, so like it's all about how things aren't actually as bad as they seem, but the way that it just differs so much from what you like read and hear on a day-to-day basis, I think just like really blew my mind in terms of like the scale of the average person's negativity bias. So I like it, even though it like the book itself is great, it's not necessarily about humanity in the way that it forces you to think is about humanity. So I think I'd have to go with Matt Ridley's The Rational Optimist.
What was your favorite quote from that book?
Oh, I mean, I couldn't tell you a quote. I mean, it's nonfiction. It's all very straightforward. It's very much about statistics. I think one of my favorite segments of the book, though, is he gets into how you just don't hear about acid rain anymore. And it's this perfect example because you may remember this.
Hey, do you remember the YouTube video guy who did a video of that acid rain? Have you not heard of it?
No, I haven't.
I'll send you a link. It was quite a funny video, someone made about a long time. Anyways, as you were saying, go ahead.
No, I mean he just gets into the segment where he goes, "When's the last time you?" He's just like, "When's the last time you heard about acid rain?" And it's really funny because it was a massive thing in like probably like mid 2000s or maybe early 2010s.
Yeah, it was
all over the news. It was acid rain this, acid rain that. And it's all anybody talked about in the environmental movement for like a year. But then as soon as it stopped being a problem, people just dropped it. Also, polar bears. You don't hear much about polar bears anymore. Whales. You stopped hearing about whales all of a sudden because their populations are thriving as of a few years ago. But I think that segment...
And tigers, a lot of people seem to say, tigers were going extinct, but all of a sudden their populations are growing up again, and it just shows...
Because people don't talk about positivity. And that's the thing that gets you to think, is the book's like, this is good, this is good, this is good. And you go, why am I not hearing about this? I actually had a recent read that very much put me in the same camp. And we actually just published on the Dad Saves America channel a Pop Wisdom with this author. So you guys should check that out. But Marion Tupy, who is at Cato, he co-wrote this book called Superabundance. And I think the book is out now. I read a galley copy, but I believe the book is out now. And basically, he looks at time prices of things as a metric for human flourishing over the last couple hundred years. And it's such a good read. And it talks about energy as a positive. And I think that with all of the environmental negativity around us in particular, reading that book was just very much a like nice little white pill for me, because energy means less people in poverty, right? Energy means bountiful things for the human race. It means less killing other things in some instances. Like we used to kill whales for fat to make candles, and now instead you just flip a switch, and instead that's just taking from very dead things in the ground to make the energy. So it's I don't know. It's a really good read. I've always found time price to be an interesting and useful trick, so I'd recommend that one too. Very much in the same vein as The Rational Optimist.
Jessi, there's also a really popular argument going on right now where a lot of feminists and a lot of people who despise feminism say, in your personal, like, they basically talk about who has it harder, men or women, who is stronger, men or women. What is your opinion to that? Like, who has it harder, men or women, or who do you think stronger, men or women?
Yeah, so my opinion is that it's stupid to have an opinion on that, to be quite frank with you, because I think that is the same zero-sum mindset that is plaguing a lot of generations. I think that looking at the unique things that affect which and how to alleviate the pressures of each one individually is absolutely the way to go about it. When one sex loses, both sexes lose. That's just how it is. So
same thing here. I think both men and women, have their issues, and both, have their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is just on average. There are going to be some women who like maybe listen to the boy crisis and think, wow, all the stuff that today's men are going through. It's weird. I kind of identify with that. Again, these are just on average. And I do think that those averages can be useful for seeing why you have certain inclinations and this and that. But as somebody who tends to deviate from a lot of the averages personally, I don't find them all that useful for my own personal growth. I do find them useful for looking at these different issues and how we can alleviate social pressures on men and on women. But in the words of that wonderful guest, Warren Farrell, I'm not for a men's movement or a women's movement. I am for a full-blown gender liberation movement across the board. I think that there are things that we can do to make the world better for both. And I think anything that forces a zero-sum mindset where one has to win or lose is absolutely useless and counterintuitive.
Especially, how I think it's great how people, being more open towards gay marriage and stuff. And that's a very, very important thing, because at the end of the day, it is what it is. It is what it is. And I think, it is good that, I do think our society, needs to be, more aware of the struggles of men, the struggles of women, whether you're gay, lesbian, straight or not. We're all human, we're all into this world, like we're trying to live just be nice to one another. That's what they say, you know, and it's just, you know, etc.
No, that's true. That's very true. I'm just completely on board with that. People need to stop being so judgmental of each other and stop feeling the need to put each other in these categories, and frankly, stop feeling the need to put themselves.
Oh my God, tell me about it. You know, what
Yeah.
is your thoughts on the transgender movement, you know, where kids are being taught, you know, how to, you know, that like whether they're 16 or 15, like the drag queen, you know, shows that are happening, and like the basically, you know, kids, you know, being told when they're younger that they can be, you know, a woman or a man.
Not comfortable.
What's your opinions on that?
The way. Sorry, I should have told you this ahead of time. I'm not comfortable commenting on trans issues.
Oh, that's okay. Sorry about that. I did my apologies, you know, like, you know. But yeah, I understand that, you know, like it is et cetera, you know, and yeah, it is, you know.
It's just
is there any
guys right now in ways that I don't know. I think that there are certain topics where people are sometimes saying the same thing but using different words. And I think that that's one of the topics that devolves into semantics quickly. And frankly, I'm not in the mood to get canceled again. So by either side. So I just topics people are all on the same page with definitions.
Jessi, when I actually saw your Twitter page, I actually saw a thing that said like cancel Jessi, and I was thinking, was this a joke or something like that? Like for a second.
Yes. Okay. Let me tell you this story real quick, but I do need to hop off soon. But I'll tell you this story. It's quite funny. So cancel Jessi started as a joke because I thought if I use it as a joke enough, it's like I'm uncancelable now because the hashtag will just, if you click through, it's just going to be a bunch of my followers using it as a joke. And that is how it was until. So I was in New Orleans on vacation with my parents and my brother. I met them out there. I think this was 2 summers ago now. No.
Which would have been 2020.
No, 2021. Summer.
Yeah, no.
But we're out there, and a mask mandate, a citywide mask mandate at the government level, goes out a few days into our trip. And my family does not like wearing the mask. They just don't find them comfortable, whatever. And you know what? They don't need the reasons, right? I'm not going to call them out too much on here. And I, you know, frankly, I didn't feel like doing it either. I just didn't. And if somebody didn't want to walk near me, they didn't have to walk near me. If a business didn't want to let me in, that's I'm not going to get into it. But regardless, I put out this tweet where I was like, I can't believe this happened. I'm not mad at the businesses, but I'm mad at the government for putting this mandate into effect. And I said, fuck this tyranny. And I went to sleep. No. I didn't go to sleep. I went to see my little brother. He was playing chess on the street. So, of course, I put my phone away because he's a phenomenal chess player. I don't know much about chess, but I love rooting for him. So I'm totally engaged with this thing for hours. So I opened my phone back up later, and I have like thousands of notifications. And basically, I guess that my tweet, a screenshot of it, was like somewhat viral on the New Orleans Reddit page, which was leading a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, Reddit can really make a fuss out of things, can it? It really can.
It was so wild. And it got so insane to the point where hashtag cancel Jessi was trending locally in New Orleans. So I got canceled by a city, which was absolutely wild. I was just getting like constant hate mail for probably like 48 hours before they tired themselves out. But it's just hilarious looking back. I find it so funny. But yeah, and people who didn't understand what a mandate was. They were like, why are you mad at the people of New Orleans for not letting you in the bars? I'm like, I'm not. I'm mad at the government forcing them to not let me in the bars. It's two very different things. The bar don't want to serve me. The bar don't want to serve me. Now, one funny thing, though, on that front, unrelated to the cancellation, we did walk past this one bar. I think it was called Vampire Bar, and we were about to walk in. And it's like a little bar cafe situation. I wanted a muffin, whatever. So we're about to go in, and the bartender goes, sir, you can't come in without a mask. And my mom goes, why do you care? You're vampires. You're already dead. And that was yeah, she's hilarious. Yeah, that's the very online thing that happened while I was trying to touch grass and spend time with my family.
Oh, that would have been funny. So before we finish up, Jessi, where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, the main place to keep up with me is my very absurd Twitter page. I'm sorry in advance. It's at Jessi Nicole B. So you can see my name spelled here, Jessi Nicole B. On Instagram, I think I'm at Jessi_Bennett, but it's linked in my Twitter bio. And that's about it for now. But to keep up with my employer, you can watch our YouTube channel, Dad Saves America. You can check out our website, eo.foundation. You can go to the foundation's YouTube channel, which I believe is just youtube.com/emergentorder. And there you can find links to a bunch of the other projects we've worked on, including the rap battles, the pursuit, that sort of thing. So
thank you for coming on my show, Jessi. It was a pleasure having you. And I just want to say to everybody, thank you for joining the Watch Republic podcast 63. I hope everyone has a nice day. Take care.